All right, we're going to just get started. I don't have like a formal intro where I'm like, welcome to Real Estate for Real. I might have just...
You need one.
Do I?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's not, I've done radio for a long time, and you do have to kind of do that. Podcasting is a little bit different.
Yeah, and you do have a face for radio, I will say that.
They are just starting it right off. All right. So I am Eric Pettigo. This is Real Estate for Real, and I'm joined with Mike Oldenettel, who I'm super, super excited to have on with me. I get excited about all these because everybody's got cool stories to tell, but I think yours is particularly fascinating. So I want to get into that, and I just want to start because I jumped online this morning because I was curious, with realtors, when we send out emails, it'll just say at the end, whatever our signature is, yours is Managing Broker, the real estate group, Illinois Realtors President, 2013, NAR Regional Vice President, 2021, NAR Member Engagement Liaison, 2023. Now that's all that's on there. Is it just because you ran out of room?
No, I just haven't updated it.
So what else goes on?
I don't need to add any more to it. I really don't. I should probably go ahead and take some of that off.
What other titles? I mean, you hold more titles?
Currently, I'm on finance of National Association of Realtors. So there's only 20 of us on the committee.
In the whole country, there's only 20 of you on this committee, and you're on it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's very humbling to even be asked to be on it, let alone actually being appointed to it for a 3-year term.
So you didn't seek it out?
No, I expressed that I would be interested when they asked me, what do you want to do next? And not that I saw what was coming, because none of us necessarily did, but I just have an interest in that.
Right.
So I've served on, obviously, finance of Capital Area, and, of course, through leadership of Capital Area, but also with the Illinois Realtors, and I'm on finance of the Illinois Realtors now as well. So. Okay.
So there's a lot, and I don't know how you even begin to get involved with like NAR and being a part of what they're doing, but obviously it's all realtor. Everybody's a realtor that's involved, right?
Yes.
So
the National Association of Realtors is 1.5 million members. All the decisions that are made by members.
Right.
It's committee. So if anybody participates at their local level, it's the same process, just bigger.
Yeah. Now, everybody like on the boards with the NAR, are they all managing brokers?
Oh, no.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No, it's anybody that actually wants to participate. So there's probably I just came back last night from Boston, from the National Convention. So yesterday morning at 8:30 was our Board of Directors meeting. And there are just over 1,000 members of the Board of Directors. Think about that as a meeting.
Yuck.
So
Sounds like a nightmare.
You've got this ballroom with the leadership team up on the stage. The leadership team is the president, the president-elect, the treasurer, the first vice president, and then you've got 2 appointed vice presidents, and then you've got the CEO, you've got our legal counsel, we've got a parliamentarian.
A parliamentarian?
Yes. His name's Bart Tishner. He's from Missouri. I've been on the board of directors for, 2008.
That long?
That long. And Bart has been there probably, and that's been 15, 16 years, so he's been there 12
Yeah,
or
2008.
more.
Yeah, that's when my daughter was born. She's 16. Yeah, that math checks out.
Yeah.
Yep, 16.
And Bart keeps everybody straight and in line, because things can go sideways when you have a motion, and then you have an amendment to the motion, and then you have an amendment to the amendment to the motion, and then what needs majority, what needs 2/3. We've got a delegate body of the National Association. So when NAR was set up over 100 years ago, this was the old way of thinking, which can still be done today, but it's not generally with corporations.
Sure.
You've got a constitution and bylaws, and the Constitution is basically run by the board, and the bylaws are run by the delegate body. So it's the checks and balances of the whole process. So there are certain things when the board approves them, they have to go before the delegate body. Well, the board's made up of 1,000 elected or appointed members from across the states. The delegate body is made up of all local presidents across the states. So you actually have people coming to the meeting that may not have even attended or have any idea what's going on at the board of director level. that are now voting to ratify some of the decisions of the board of directors. For example,
so much.
The code of ethics.
Right.
The code of ethics just can't be changed arbitrarily.
Makes sense.
The Professional Standards Committee makes a recommendation. Then the executive committee concurs or sends it back for reconsideration. If the executive committee concurs, then the board of directors has to approve it. If the board of directors approves the change to the code of ethics, then the delegate body has to meet to change the code of ethics. So that's one of their main functions is our code. Yeah.
Okay. So it's more or less a governing body. It's a government. It's its own government.
It certainly is.
Yeah. And you've been a part of it for a long time.
For quite a while.
And so is there any compensation for that? I did not clear these questions with you. So you don't make any extra by being a part of this?
Nothing.
So,
I'm simply a volunteer. Now, graciously, the states and locals do help with expense reimbursement.
Okay. Sure.
So at least it's not out of pocket, but there's no per diem. There's no salary. No. So from Wednesday after I left the office here at 2 o'clock until last night when I got home from the St. Louis airport, that's all on my dime.
And so this is 100% just because you care about and love this industry that we're in.
Thank you for saying it that way. Yes.
Why else would you? It's not like you don't have enough going on. You're managing broker of the largest real estate company in Central Illinois, right? It's not like you don't have your hands full there. And then on top of that, you're involved in everything going on with the National Association. And are you still in the Illinois Association? Or you've got your hands in that as well?
I do.
So
I have a problem, and that is I can't say no. I've been a volunteer not just for the realtor associations all these years, but even in my own community.
Sure.
It just and that's my wife and I are both the same way. My kids are the same way.
She must be incredibly patient.
She's worse than I am. She's also a city alderman. Now we both just feel there's more to life than just going to work and coming home. And with real estate, I decided years ago when I was first president in 1995 of the Jacksonville Association of Realtors that there was more to our business than the walls around our city.
Sure.
There's more to it than just listing and selling. If you really want to know what it means to protect your client's best interests, you have to learn. You have to expand yourself. And I found the best way for me to do that is to be exposed with other brokers, not just in my market. And frankly, in our market, we need to be best friends. I don't care what company you're with.
I think you and me are pretty cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
But we need to be friends with people outside of the walls of our own building.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Because ultimately, what we're doing together is what's in our best interest of our clients. We have one common goal, and that is for our clients to buy, our clients to sell.
Yes.
And we need to not just be able to get along, but understand what's best and all the options that everybody has. And what I spend a lot of my time doing is as you know, taking calls from agents. Okay, let's think outside the box. Let's look from a 30,000 square foot view, and let's together try to figure out what are the best options. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And so a lot of times it's just pulling the agent out of the process of what's going on and say, focus on the problem. All the other stuff, just put that off to the side right now. What is the issue we have to solve?
Yeah.
Regardless of how we got there.
Yeah.
So
I want to circle back because you mentioned we need to be best friends with, and you say that, obviously we're not all going to be best friends, but we do need to all work together with, I forget how it came up, but I've said it a lot of times. Anytime I hear, and I think we covered this in Coffee and Questions last week, somebody say, well, how can we represent both sides to the same transaction? And people tend to have this mindset that it's buyer versus seller, and that, they'll say, well, you have to have two attorneys and that you can't have one. And it's like, that's not what we are. We're not attorneys trying to win and make the other side lose. We all have the same goal. So we are competitive with each other for business purposes, but I'm not out to get other agents. We all have to kind of work together. And I remember when right after all the changes with the lawsuit, and I'm sure you remember this too, but we were in Coffee and Quay, and I said, hey, we kind of need to help out these other agents that don't have maybe the access to the training and the education that we do, and they're out there, maybe they don't understand that, hey, they need this form to be attached, and it's instead of taking advantage of that right off the bat, when this is all still new, we need to be helping these other agents from other companies and kind of get everybody up to the same level of understanding. And that's just going to be better for us as an industry and for our clients.
And I think, and you heard me say it, I think that's the right attitude to take. We have the benefit with our company of having the resources, having the people, having the opportunities to get the information out and do it in a number of different ways. But not every company is set up that way, and not every agent relates with their management team in the same way. And as much of a shame as that is, it's out there, it's going to happen, and what do we do about it? Do we want to be in an adversarial role in a transaction? Heavens no. There's no reason for any transaction to start off that way. There should not be in this business the opportunity for anybody to try to one-up the other one.
Right.
There's no place for that.
No.
And for those that don't quite get it, and believe me, we still have many agents throughout the entire area that still don't have a full understanding of what we're going through with these practice changes, it's incumbent upon us to help them through it, not to berate them because they don't know, not to take advantage of them because they don't know, because what we have to do is the same common end goal, which is we have to have a successful transaction, not for us, but for our clients.
Yes. Yeah. And I've always thought, because you'll see online, somebody will say, well, I'm never using a real estate agent again because mine didn't do this, this, or this. So one experience they had with one real estate agent has now caused them to believe that all of us are the exact same, and they can get that level of service from whoever they call.
Yep.
And so I've always kind of held that belief that then if I can help another person in our industry maybe be a little bit better at the services they offer, that's going to be good for all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it takes one instance, one moment, just like that, for somebody to lose trust.
Yep. Yeah.
And it takes months, it takes years, it takes sweat in order to build that trust back.
I'm a sweaty guy by nature, so that I should be good there. So we jumped right into some stuff. Normally how I start these is a question of what got you into this industry in the first place? I mean, did you grow up as a little kid saying, I want to be a real estate agent? My guess is no.
So who's going to be the audience for this podcast?
I've got a pretty strong audience.
Mainly realtors?
A lot of realtors.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. But mainly realtors, but other people too, because it's people have an interest in real estate in general.
I laugh about it. I joke about it, but I got in the business because of alcohol.
Whoa. Okay. That's not what I was expecting.
I was in the radio business before I got into real estate.
Really? No wonder we get along so well.
Announcing, production, writing. That's what I came back to Jacksonville for from Chicago. And one of the sales reps at the radio station just wanted to take me along and introduce me to people. So we'd go to the Elks Club every business day morning at 10 o'clock. So Monday through Saturday at 10 o'clock, we go to the Elks. And it was a male bonding session.
Okay.
For one real estate broker, actually two real estate brokers, insurance agent, stockbrokers, bankers, a couple attorneys. Everybody just gathered together just to have a cup of coffee for an hour, and that became a religious event. So I went to coffee and met several of these gentlemen, and understand I was born and raised in the community, so I knew them by name.
Sure. And
actually went to school with their sons or daughters, so I knew them. But back in the late 80s...
I was getting ready to say approximately what time?
Late 80s, 88, 89. And Illinois did not have a happy hour law. You know, bars would have happy hours to where you would show up at whatever time they started, and it was food and discounted beverages. So we just happened to be at one of our establishments in town, and a gentleman named Charlie Hypebrink was the broker. And Charlie just looked at me one day when we were having a cocktail. He said, "Have you ever thought about getting in the real estate business?"
Okay.
And that's all it took.
I mean, how bizarre is that, right? So who knows how your life would have turned out if you weren't there that day for Charlie to ask if you ever considered it. And now look, you've been in. So you jumped in then, right? You were
Yes.
like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
I'm like, I thought, what the heck? I mean, I loved the business that I was in, but in looking to see how his life had gone, knowing his sons, it was like, you know what? I mean, this is one of the most upstanding, most professional, most highly respected brokers in Jacksonville at the time. And if I was going to jump on board with anybody, I mean, I even picked up the phone and called an attorney that I knew, whose children I went to school with, and asked him, "Hey, what do you think about this gentleman?" So I even back then thought,
So you vetted him a little bit.
I
Yeah.
did. I
Okay.
did. I wanted to make sure I was doing whether or not I was doing the right thing would yet to be determined, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting into something that I shouldn't, and I wasn't hooking my train to somebody that I also shouldn't. And so I was told the story about he started his own business, and he had started in the early 1970s, and it was suggested if I was going to be mentored by somebody, he'd be a good one.
That'd be the guy. And
so that's how it happened.
Okay, so you jump in and you take to it immediately, or did it kind of take a while to get some traction?
So it took. Let's see. I started in March of 1989. My first closing was on my birthday, which was in June. So it took a few months to get my first closing. And then it was a dry spell for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But understand, I was in my early 20s. I was right out of college. So, and he said, "Look, we need to make you look professional. We need to make you look older." I said, okay. And so back then, I would be wearing a shirt and tie right out of college. I'd be wearing sport coats. And I went and got a pair of fake glasses. Glasses with just glass, not prescription. Because it did.
Are those prescription, or is this something you've kept up?
It evolved.
Devolved.
So these I need in order to read, and God knows I read a lot. So no, I just discovered one. I don't know, when I was maybe in my early 40s, that I was getting headaches.
Okay.
And it was when I was reading, and so went to an eye doctor who was a client. Was like, "Well, you dumb A, you need glasses." I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
Did you ever consider just not reading anymore?
Yeah. No, that's really not an option. Now, you've heard me say this before, realtors don't read, meaning that when I ask somebody to read an email, they don't do it. So,
sure.
And messages that we get from NAR or the Illinois Realtors, even capillary realtors don't take the time to read the materials that they should, which would help us with what we talked about earlier.
Certainly. There was I think that it ramped up a little bit a couple of months ago. I think people were starting to read a little bit then, but now that's, the largeness of that whole situation has kind of died down. Everybody's getting back into the swing of things and not reading anymore.
You might be right. You might be right. But Charlie's the one that said to me, "Look, you need to learn the business, not just from taking the classes and passing the test and following me around to look at homes. You need to be a part of the association." So he encouraged me back then to get on a committee.
Do a little extra.
And what it helped to do at that point was also meet other brokers, because the only brokers I really knew were the ones in my office, and the ones I got to know by calling them to set up an appointment to to show their listing, or calling their office to talk to the secretary, who then set up the appointment and then called us back. So a lot of phone calls back then, and this is before cell phones.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And computers and
calls.
the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And so I haven't been doing this since the 80s. I was 8 years old in March of 1989. About to be 9, though. But when I started, we had to call the office. I had to make a list on paper of all the places I was going, map it out, call whatever brokerage that it was, and request a showing for that time. They would have to call the seller and approve it. They would have to call me back and let me know. And I'm trying to coordinate, 9, 10, 11 showings, and I'm waiting. I've got them all penciled in certain times.
Yep.
It has gotten significantly easier. With
Technology has helped many aspects of our business. It's not going to replace us.
No,
but
it can't. You see that stuff all the time, right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to need them anymore, but technology can't walk you through the houses and help you notice things that you would maybe overlook. And I just don't see, there's so many things that a realtor provides on like a personal level that I don't know how that could ever be replaced.
Did you happen to see the 2024 home buyer and home seller profile that NAR just released? It was just last week.
Something I was supposed to read?
Something people are supposed to read.
Dang it. No.
The one resonating statistic that everybody should think about, considering what you just said. For sale by owners across the country, mm-hmm. the percentage of for sale by owners has dropped to 7%. It has been 9, 10, and 11.
I was going to say, isn't it usually about 10?
For decades, 7%, which means that they've realized that there's a reason for our being. And so, yes, we are necessary in the transaction.
I mean, clearly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an industry that's been around, over a century? Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, I always say when people online, and I do this too much and I've since backed off, but I like to interact with some of the trolls online every now and then, just because it's fun for me. It's a good exercise, and and I say, why would anybody even use an agent? I say, you're right. Why would anybody want to use an expert when making the largest transaction of their lifetime? Why would you want any assistance with that whatsoever? Right. And it's a tough one to answer.
You can go on YouTube and get a video to change your tire. You can get a video to do most anything.
Right.
And probably, I'm sure there's some out there about how to buy and sell real estate.
Some, yeah. Hundreds, thousands.
But there are some people, and I've had people say to me, well, can I sell a home without a realtor? Sure you can. Can I sell it without an attorney? Sure you can. Can we do it without a bank involved? Sure you can. Oh, all those things can happen.
Sure.
They just don't know what goes on behind the scenes in order for it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times and you mentioned the YouTube videos. I had Natalie Dotson from INB in here a couple of weeks ago, mm-hmm. and she was talking about, she has investor clients who listen to podcasts about people, what they do, their strategies, invest, but they're in other parts of the country. And so people, here are trying to apply that same technique, and it doesn't work. It's not the same, it's different. So you have to be careful when you're watching videos or getting info online, because every region is kind of different in how it works. And that's kind of the personal touch that a local realtor can bring to the table that you just can't find online somewhere. I've been in Chatham my whole life. I feel like I know that community and better than, not better, but as well as anybody does. There's no way that can be kind of replicated by Googling house prices in Chatham.
No.
I can go into any neighborhood and say, oh, I can tell you it's about worth this, and if you paint that and add some carpet and do, it's going to be worth it. And I bat a pretty high percentage there because I've grown up there.
The benefit of a realtor and the expertise that you bring, here's the data.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with it. We know how to assimilate it. We know how to interpret it. We know how to use the data
We do it every day.
every day.
Yeah. So, when did the managing broker part come into play for you? So it was late '80s. You got into real estate. When did it turn into, okay, I'm a real estate agent and out selling properties, but I think I'm going to get into the managing part of it. That seems like more of a challenge.
October 1, 1996.
You got all these. You know exactly when. All right. So what brought that about? What convinced you? What possessed you to think that was going to be fun?
That's when Charlie Heitbrink decided that we were going to become a franchise.
Oh, okay.
And so we were an independent company. And over the years, he happened to be, he didn't follow the same track that I did with the association. Instead, he went just regulatory, meaning he was appointed by the governor back in the 90s to be one of the members of the disciplinary board for IDFBR.
Oh, okay.
He served on that for 10, 11 years and was actually president of, at that time, it was called NARRLO, NARRLO. It's now just called ARELO, and that's the Association of Real Estate Licensed Law Officials. And so he was the president of that international group. That's when they took the N off of it from national associate to just association. And through his travels, he had kind of investigated all the different types of franchises and could a franchise be a benefit to a company. And he decided that RE/MAX was going to be the franchise that he wanted us to be a franchisee for. And so he bought the franchise. And the same day that we opened or rolled the company over from an independent to RE/MAX was the day he named me as the managing broker.
Ah, okay.
So he saw in me that I had developed enough of the knowledge base I needed in the real estate industry, but saw that I had a natural knack for trying to help others solve their problems, that he thought I would make a good manager. So he's the one that suggested and asked me to be the managing broker for his company.
Wow.
Now, he was also at the stage of his life where he wanted to be in Florida for 3 months out of the year. And take extended trips with his wife, who happened to be a licensed appraiser as well. So they were both in the business. But that's when it started for me. And at that point, we only had, I think, 7 agents, grew it to 12 agents. We're number one in that market for years. But that's when it started for me, was as far as management was concerned.
Okay, and you were completely open to it, and no regrets, obviously, because here you are now, 2024.
No regrets. One of the things when you're with a smaller company, you still have to list and sell, and there's always that potential of a conflict with you and an agent when you're representing a client, where you can't, take yourself out of it and let somebody else represent the client in order to give advice to both sides. So, does that ever happen? It's rare,
right? But certainly you've come across that situation, right? Where you, as the managing broker, because you still do a little listing, and
I do, and I've actually, in talking to many attorneys and several lenders, they're asking me, do you still list and sell? And I say, I do. I try not to.
Sure.
But it's very difficult when you've got a friend who's a doctor whose daughter is moving back to town and they want you to sell them a house.
You're who they trust.
I'm not going to say no to my clients and my friends for all these decades that I've been doing this. I don't take leads. Somebody calls that I've never met. No, I refer them to other agents, for example.
That's fine. Send them to me. That'll
Can
be fine.
do.
Okay.
And
appreciate it.
But the benefit of me still doing a transaction once in a while is that I can, with all comfort and confidence, sit with you when you've got an issue saying, yeah, I use this document.
Yeah.
So I know that conversations you're having. I'm not just a manager up here that has not been active listing and selling and knowing what the heck goes on. No, I know what goes on each and every day because I still do it myself. So there's value to that.
So in a normal instance, right? So let's say hypothetically, I'm in a transaction with another agent in our office and things are going sideways.
I know. I heard about it.
Yeah, I said hypothetically because that
okay,
doesn't
yeah.
really happen with
Right,
me.
right.
But a couple other agents that But regardless, you are who they would call. What do we do about this? This is things are not going well. How does that get handled when you're part of that transaction yourself?
The good thing is with our company is we've got two of us.
Yeah.
So anybody at any time could also call Mike if they're not comfortable with that. But the thing is, I don't remember that I've ever been in that type of an adversarial situation, because in talking with the other agent, again, hey, this isn't about you and me.
Right.
It's about solving the problem that we have with our clients. And so I can't remember, unless somebody hears this podcast and calls and says, no, remember this happened. I don't remember a situation that was so overly tense that the other agent had to call another managing broker to get advice. Because not that I'm that good of an agent, that's not the point, but I also don't want any situation to get to this position.
Right.
It doesn't need to. And so I strive very, very, very hard to not let that happen and remind them, hey, this isn't about us.
Yeah.
And I understand what their thoughts are, but these are our thoughts. So
I hope that a lot of agents listen and hear that, because I think that's a really important thing that people need to keep in mind when they're doing this, is it's not about us.
No.
And I feel like a lot of times, let's just be honest, realtors can kind of get an ego on them at times.
You think?
And that does result in this a little bit, is no, I know more, no, I'm the bigger agent, I know, that's kind of the wrong approach, because we need to be looking out for our clients, not necessarily trying to inflate our own egos. But as a managing broker, especially of a company like this, we've got a lot of agents, and we have a lot of really successful agents here. Our production is, it seems like we're breaking records every year. How is that to kind of manage all of those different personalities? And I don't want to be insulting by saying egos, but confidence levels of agents. These are all my friends too.
Politically correct.
So, yeah, right. But that's got to be tough, right? To kind of make sure everybody stays in check somewhat.
And I don't feel that it's my position, my job to put somebody in check. So that's, neither Mike or I have that attitude. All we want to do is, when somebody is taking that path, and this does happen, I've had agents say to me, yeah, but I'm not going to make that commission. It's not about you. And Mike and I have said that to people repeatedly. This isn't about you. An agent will sell a home, and then something in the transaction happens, and now their job is to get the buyer and seller to not sell the home.
Right.
So you're actually doing two transactions and you're getting zero. And that's what you're charged to do with your licensing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It doesn't matter what money you make. It doesn't matter if you're making $1 or $10,000 or whatever it is. It's got nothing to do with it. And if you're going to focus on that, you focus in on the wrong thing. And you're not putting your client's interests first. Anybody that puts their interest in front of their clients has a problem, not just with Mike and I, but with the code of ethics and with license law. And sometimes we just have to remind people of that. And you can see it when you're having that in-person conversation. When something like that comes up and it's like, whoa, this isn't about you. You can just kind of see oh.
Yeah. It's good to, sometimes we all need kind of reminded of what our license is. It's not a license to make money. It's a license to assist people in home transactions.
The commission dollars, and if you always think about it, is, yes, we all got in this business to make money.
Well,
There's no question about it.
Right.
But as long as we know that we have to put our client first, not us, trust me, the money will come.
Yeah.
Because when you've got this happy client, what do? They talk. And all of a sudden, you're going to have another happy client and another happy client. That's why for the almost 36 years I've been doing this, I get enough real estate business without having to market and advertise and buy leads, just because I've got the reputation that I have built and that I have protected for so long, I don't treat people the way a lot of agents do, and all these people keep coming back. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm sure that there are many out there that will not say nice things about me. It is what it is.
That's part of the game. I mean, that's what you sign up for. Nobody bats 1,000. We've all made mistakes, but I mean, I'm the same way. I spend very little on advertising. You won't see me on a billboard or a park bench. I don't do mailers. It's all of my business. I mean, 99% is referrals and repeat customers. And I like it that way. It feels more personal that way. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah. And you should be. And one of the things that Charlie impressed upon me years and years ago was he said, get involved. And he didn't mean just with the association. I joined the Kiwanis Club. I got involved in the Chamber of Commerce. Got involved with my church. Got involved with school. I mean, this is you don't necessarily like to brag about this, but I chaired the committee to raise sales tax in Jacksonville by 1%, a 1 cent sales tax. And you should see our schools now, because we didn't have the money to upgrade our schools. And we have done a remodel to every school, all but one in Jacksonville in the last 10 years, because I was the co-chair that actually asked people to say, yes, we want a tax increase, and this is what we're going to use it for.
And then you did. Then that's where it went, and
yes,
you can see the results.
Absolutely.
And then I think most people would be fine with something like that if they can see results and they know that what they're paying is going
so tangible
to something good. Right.
And every community needs good schools. Otherwise, you're not going to have a community.
Yeah.
And it's getting involved with things like that now people, if somebody's on the other side of that issue, fine. But I developed so many more relationships and respect from others in the community, because they're just not looking at me as somebody that's trying to list and sell a house to make a commission. No,
right.
I'm in it for the community. I'm in it for my children. I'm in it for what's right. And that's why I feel every agent should get involved. Don't just wait for things to happen. And I didn't get involved with Kiwanis in order to make commission dollars. I got involved with Kiwanis, get involved with Rotary, with Ambux, whatever, just to build relationships, to be part of a community. And that's the benefit of what happens because of those relationships.
And that's great advice. And I think a lot of agents are wired that way anyway. It seems like I don't know what it is, that if it's a certain personality type, but I've always been that. I've always coached my kids and tried to do as much as I can for the community I grew up in. And I started bocce ball leagues and basketball leagues and all these. I like to bring people together for things, and it's been helpful. That's just the way that I've been wired since before real estate. And it's certainly helped me with this job.
How many parents of kids that you have coached are clients? And not because you wanted to coach.
So many.
Same with me with soccer for 30 plus years, coaching youth soccer.
My oldest son likes to remind me that he's like, if I didn't play baseball, you probably wouldn't have a real estate business.
No, but all those things are important. They just are.
And so my oldest son just turned 21, and he is interested in potentially getting in to this business. And so we do have a lot of young agents these days. It didn't used to be. I mean, you said you started right out of college, and I talked to Julie Davis a few weeks ago, and she started in her 20s as well. And back then, real estate agents were not in their 20s.
No. I think the average age of a realtor has dropped like 53, 54, average across the country. Back when I started, it was close to 60. It
crazy.
And even in the small town of Jacksonville, there were over 100 agents there at one time. I think there were 65 when I got in the business in 1989. And now, 20. Springfield, on the other hand, I don't know historically what it was like. I mean, right now we got 500 plus in Springfield. So, and I don't know what it was like, 30 years ago.
That's a lot.
We've got 1.5 million members across the country.
Yeah.
We've budgeted for 1.4, so we're anticipating some drop-off because of the settlement. And this is that time of the year. I mean, we know our local dues. We already had to pay them by August 1. Many associations are billing now, and so we really won't know what our member number will look like until January, February.
So I read, and I read. How
Thank
about that?
you.
I read, like right after COVID, when the rates dropped and there was the big boom, that it was, and I don't know if this is accurate, but the largest number of new realtors happened right then at one time. A bunch of people came rushing into this business because it was like printing money.
Well, there were two things that drove that. One, our advocacy efforts. So our state staff was able to get us as an essential business.
Yes.
So not every state was declared with realtors as essential.
Really?
Yes.
I thought that was nationwide. I thought
No,
every
state to
realtor
state.
was declared
I think
essential.
I think there were 4 or 5 states that they did not declare them as. Everybody else
Really?
hurriedly got involved
Okay.
because it's part of the financing process.
Right. And relocation process.
Exactly. And so, but it was because of those advocacy efforts that we were able to conduct business during the pandemic. But a lot of people were working from home or not working. And so what did they do? They got a real estate license. One, because, again, they weren't working. But two, they could work because we were an essential business.
And there was a need.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it was so hard. When that happened, I'm already an established agent, so I've got my clients, I've got my work, and all of a sudden, rates are 2%.
Yeah.
And every single person who was toe in the water, sitting on the fence, I mean, they cannonballed in then, right?
Yeah.
They were ready. Like, oh no, we're buying now. We're not passing up on this. So all these buyers flooded the market, and that was the time where, if you didn't get in the day the house hit, you didn't get a shot at it. And so my thought is there were so many buyers wanting to get into these houses, knowing that if they didn't get in day one, they weren't even going to have a shot at it. They needed somebody to take them through that house. If you call me at noon on a Wednesday wanting to see a house at 3:00, that's tough. I've got appointments. I've got I've got things going on. I might not be able to get you through there. So what are you going to do? Find somebody who will. Mm-hmm. You finding your house. That's your top priority, not having me as your agent. And right. So I don't know if that's just the connections that my brain made were, well, there was a need for people to take buyers through houses, and so filled that need with new realtors.
Yep, we did see in Illinois an increase in the number of licensees. We have since seen a little bit of a correction.
Yes.
Not a huge drop, but we have to anticipate that, especially with the new practice changes. But we all know, this lack of inventory has created such a backlog. And heard a statistic from Dr. Lawrence Yoon, who's our chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. He told us at a finance meeting in Florida 2 months ago that 600,000 of the 1.5 did not do a transaction last year.
Whoa, what?
And
hold on.
You can
didn't do a single transaction in 2023.
Correct.
Wow.
And all that information is trackable through the MLSs. I mean, we have members in our local market that have done maybe one transaction this year. And that's not unusual. You generally 20, 30%. I mean, you've always heard the 80-20 rule that 20% of the people are doing 80% of the business.
Yes.
You've got, even up in larger in the Chicagoland area, you've got 35% that doesn't do a deal in the year. So, oof. I mean, so you start and also the number of home sales are less than they were in 2019. With more realtors in the business, which means if there was an average of 9, 10, 11 transactions per agent per year nationwide, now it's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it just
dropped significantly
because of the number of people that got in the business, and so that's why we're budgeting for a drop from 1.5 to 1.4 million. Just thinking, okay, these people are going to decide that we're done. We need a job.
Sure.
We need actual employment as opposed to be self-employed. The lack of inventory, we have always thought in 2025 is when we're going to start seeing the change. We're starting to see slow increases in inventory, but we still see them coming off the shelf just as quick.
Yes.
So interest rates going up is good and bad, because it gives us the opportunity to get more inventory on the market, but yet it doesn't give the buyers the opportunity to buy what they want to buy. It affects affordability. Somebody that could afford $300 at 2% money, is now affording $225, $250
Yes.
at 6% money. So it affects affordability, but we still have such an off-kilter supply and demand, still have buyers out there and still short of inventory. When will that change? It's a slow process. And new construction starts have happened, but it's that other inventory. It's the people in the 2% mortgages that we need to convince to sell.
Right.
That's the inventory we need.
Yeah. And I mean, boy, that really, because we've had low inventory since then. Mm-hmm. And it's every year. I mean, when rates shot up to whatever they were, 8%, I mean, still we had low inventory and we had more buyers than we had sellers, even at those rates. And so, a lot gets thrown around about elections and now rates are and it's not that as much as just supply and demand in general. And we are still trying to correct the issue that happened right after COVID.
Right.
And we're still kind of in that. We're in the wake of all of that.
And that's just a market shift. I mean, it is what it is because of something that happened to the country. And I don't believe that, and you mentioned politics, and yes,
we don't have to.
Well, and what I will say about it is I've been in this business long enough. I've had successful years when one party was in office. I've had successful years when another party's in office.
Yep.
It is what it is, and we always find a way to be successful.
Yeah.
If you are good at your business, you're going to be good, whether gasoline's at $3.29 or if it's at $2.79. It doesn't matter, okay?
Yeah.
Does it affect a lot of other things? It does. People's attitudes, whatever. But we have had great years under all different political times.
And a lot of it comes down to the agent and
it does.
And what you put into your business and like when I talk about all of the agents that came into the business to fill that need, and I said, and money's never easy to come by, but then, I mean, in the course of my career, you stick a sign in the ground. By the time you get home to upload the listing into the MLS, you've already had 3 calls on it. You know for a fact, once this goes active, I'm getting multiple offers. I mean, that was happening. Mm-hmm. It was the amount of work that we had to do as agents. We listed a house, the offers would come flooding in, and not the hardest part was going through them with the seller, because hardly anybody was doing any home inspections. And there were, people were waiving all these contingencies. They weren't doing appraisals. I mean, it was easier in that sense, because the hard work when it comes to being a realtor is all the things that happen after the agreement. Mm-hmm. That's always been my thought. And then even as a buyer's agent, it wasn't easy to get a house under contract necessarily, but the offers that people wrote were clean. You weren't attaching things to them. So it's like, all right, I'll drag you around to all these houses. We'll go 50,000 over ask everywhere, waive all the contingencies until we get one.
Such a dangerous time.
Buddy, I'm telling you. But now on the back side of that, home inspections are happening again. People are less likely to cover that appraisal gap. That the buyers are getting a little bit of their power back in the market. The result of that is now agents are having to do what agents have always had to do, which is all of the extra stuff. And so for new agents who jumped in during that time, they probably got a false sense of what this job is. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes down, when things start getting back to normal, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to hustle here. I really have to work, and I have to know what these contracts say, and I have to know, what to attach. I have to know how to work through repair addendums, and you didn't have to know that as much then. And I think I've thought, well, we're going to lose people now, because this job is not what you thought it was in 2021 or 2022. This job is a lot more than that. And that's been my perception of of kind of the fallout of that is, all right, well, we're gonna be saying goodbye to quite a few of you because it's not what you thought it is.
The easy time is
and I hate to say
coming
easy,
to an end.
but it was easier.
Yeah.
It was.
No. Well, and totally driven because of the market conditions and advising, and it was very difficult. And I hope everybody had those conversations with those buyers. Hey, if you want to offer 50 over and you don't want any inspections, please don't call me next week to sell this house for you.
Yeah.
You need to stay here for a while. And whatever you discover, defects otherwise, get them fixed. I mean, we should have been telling our buyers that the whole time. I hope that we did. And we'll find out in time. But you know, people are going to sell. You just can't let them. You have to give them guidance. You have to tell them the bad with the good.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're excited to buy it. It just had it happen this weekend with a client wanting to pay over, and I said, "Fine, you absolutely can do that. It is your money, and if the bank's willing to go along with you too, it's your money. It is your decision. So sleep on it." Because when you end up having 450 into this home and in a market that's only going to bring it at 375, you need to decide that this is what you want to do.
I also hope people were having those conversations. I know I was. I know I can't tell you how many times I walked into a house with a buyer, and I missed out on a lot of houses for my buyers during that time, but I don't feel bad about it because they would ask me a question. You think this is priced high? Yeah, it is. Not only is it priced too high, it's going to go for even more. So know that going in, right? If you want it, it's already priced high and you're going to have to pay more. So just so you know. And we need to talk about your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan. And also you have to be aware that sometimes life happens. In a year from now, that 5-year plan might have turned into a 1-year plan, and you're going to be upside down on this thing potentially.
Yeah.
And also, if there's no pre-inspection done, I strongly advise you still get an inspection. Like, well, is that going to maybe not let us get the house? Yes, but still, you need to be protected on this. So I missed out on a lot during that time for my buyers, but I do believe they all appreciate it, and many have said, right, that they appreciate me encouraging them to not overspend or to not waive their inspection, because you never know what you uncover on those.
You know, and the good thing is, as long as you set those expectations, but then the reality of it is, look, if you don't come in at 50 over with no inspections and close in 2 weeks, you're just not going to get it. Yeah. And I know that conversation a lot of agents had with their clients. I just hope they had the background before that happened.
Yeah. So we still have a little bit of time here. I wanted to ask you one thing. I wanted to make sure I asked you is, well, I'll start by I remember first time meeting you. Because you were at RE/MAX, you were managing broker at RE/MAX, and you had called me a couple of times. And it's a normal thing in real estate for managing brokers of one company to call agents at other offices. And I always, my loyalty is to my family and what's best. So I always took appointments. If somebody wanted to take time out of their life to talk to me as a real estate agent, I was going to go see. I love the real estate group. Don't get me wrong, I really, really do. But my obligations to my family and what's best for. So I met with you a couple of times, and you and I always got along really well. And when I heard that you were coming here, I said, "Oh, well, that's great. That's great." I mean, I was so excited to get you over here at the real estate group. So what? I don't want to say what brought that about, but what about the real estate group made you want to come here? Can I ask that question?
Sure.
Okay. I don't want to, like I said, I probably should have cleared some of this with you, but.
Well, and many have heard this story, what happened. I was the exit strategy for RE/MAX professionals. And over time, we got the company evaluated, and the owner just didn't, was the owner's other half, just wasn't ready to sell.
Okay.
And I was in a position that I was ready to do what I was asked to do after 7 years, was to run the company and own the company. And that wasn't happening. Well, and timing is everything.
Sure.
Timing is everything. And that's when Mike Busher reached out to me and said, and Mike and I over the years have had a great working relationship. We both knew it's not about us. It's let's focus on the transaction that we've got the issue with, find the problem, try to get it addressed and solve it. So Mike and I had developed a friendship and quite a very respectful friendship. And he called me and said, "What would you think about the two of us collaborating?" That's how it started.
Yeah.
And so we had lunch one day, and he said, just give it some thought and see if that's something that you might consider, because we could take our company, which was the largest, and RE/MAX. We always, and speaking for both Mike and I, we always want a good competition with companies number 2, number 3. We have to have competition, and we want them to be good competition. But we felt, hey, if we could collaborate together, what could we do with this company to grow it? What other opportunities do we have? And that was very enticing to me. After 25 years of being with the RE/MAX franchise, I won't say anything bad about it. But
No.
25
That's not
years.
what I was trying to get out of you either. My question was more like, what enticed you about the real estate group, right?
Having met and worked with a lot of the agents here at the company, having spent time with Mike specifically, it was the people that really was the draw.
Sure. Me. It was
specifically you.
Specifically me.
Yes.
Yeah, specifically me. And so that transition, then, 25 years is a long time. So that transition, for one, must have been tough. That's obviously a huge decision to make.
The two things that were the difficult part of it was changing my email address and my license plate.
Yeah, super hard.
But the license plate was easy. The email address, not so much, after all the years of having that. But anyway.
And then, so you come over here, everybody took to you pretty much immediately, I feel like.
It was a great reception. It was with open arms. Mike and I had met with the board just to say, we have some great thoughts and potential plans, and the two of us collaborating, let's see where this can go. And when I came, the group was at 155 agents. Now we're at 255 and multiple offices. And so the growth has been incredible. We've expanded into different markets. Mike and I have shared responsibilities, shared duties. He still basically runs, look at it two ways. He's running the company, I'm running the agents. If you want to break it down that way. Yeah. And it's been a great partnership with the two of us, and I appreciate the board giving us the opportunity to do what we've done.
So you mentioned that growth, and that leads me to, so a lot of that, we have new agents, newer agents, and the training. Julie Davis and I talked about that. I asked her I don't know if you heard that one or not, but I won't put you on the spot. But, hey, what mistake do you think new agents make if you had to pick? She goes, it's not really them. It's kind of the lack of training people are getting these days. So how hard, I know it's got to be a huge priority to make sure that these agents that then, come out and then go out and are working with the real estate group, representing our company, what can we do to make sure that newer agents are getting proper training before we kind of unleash them on the world?
It's the biggest challenge any sponsoring and managing broker have. And the license law requires us to provide training. It requires us to be involved in transactions up until they get their 45-hour post-licensing completed for their first renewal. So there are statutory obligations that I have. and it's a challenge.
Yeah.
The culture back in Julie's the decades of which she was doing so much training. I mean, obviously I'm doing all the CE here. We do training all the time, but is it enough? It's never enough. And the bigger challenge is that the students now, the agents, they don't want to attend anything in person anymore. And when you can get your continuing education online, I get it. Go get it online. Will you get more coming out of class and having in-person discussions? I feel that you do, especially when you start talking about situational things. When you hear the story about this agent and the story about this agent and their transaction and just the group discussions, you learn so much for that.
Yes.
All we can do, just like we say, realtors don't read. I can send you email after email. I can mail you stuff. I can go knock on your door. But if you're not willing to take in the information, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
And it's a real liability to have brand new agents. And unless they have the proper mentoring and training available. And that's one of the reasons why we are such a team-centric community. This whole association, think of all the teams with all the companies scattered in this market. Even in our company, 65% of our agents are on a team.
Really?
65%.
I didn't realize the number was that high.
Yes.
Wow.
And the benefit of being on the team is that additional mentoring, training, guidance, support. You get what you pay for. Okay?
Yes.
And if you want to be on a team, here are the things you get with a team generally. And the conversations between the team lead and that agent when they're talking about compensation. Mike and I have never walked into somebody's office and said, "Hey, Julie, here's your new team member." Ain't happening.
Right.
Can't do that. Teams are built with relationships, and it's got to be an organic growth between that team member and that team lead. And then you see teams and how successful they are because they've got a culture. And so many teams do their own trainings, do their own mentoring and support. Sometimes it's great when, you get double booked on an appointment. You can call somebody on the team to help you out. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You don't have to have a team for that to happen, but that's one of the benefits of having a team.
Yeah.
And as the managing broker, when a new licensee comes in and they go to a team, there's a little bit of comfort in that, knowing, okay, somebody else is also going to go through with them the contract, the listing agreement, the disclosures. Otherwise, it's incumbent upon me to do that as well.
So I mean, is that ever tricky when somebody's on a team and they've got a good team lead, and do you ever see a time when you do have to step in and say, "Hey, this person on your team needs to tighten this up a little bit," or that's
It happens.
Okay.
And in most cases, if there happens to be something that's occurred with a team member, I alert the team lead because they want to know.
That's the move, right? You
Yes.
go to the team lead.
I go to the team lead and say, "Hey, this is what I was just informed about." Either, and I'll leave it up to you. If you want to call and talk to your team member, great. If you want me to, or the three of us get together.
Yeah.
But we certainly want to correct anything so it doesn't happen again.
You got to say, "Hey, Josh Cruz, you got to make sure your mom is staying in line out there."
It's been a challenge with Josh. I'm kidding.
I'm glad you brought up the in-person stuff because I've always, I guess it's almost like it almost like aligns with just life in general, because I feel like, the older I get, the more I realize the less I know, kind of, and it's kind of like with real estate too, because I was fortunate enough to have, pretty good success early in my career as an independent agent. I've never been on a team, and, there's good training in place when I got here for just agents like me. We had Pat, and Pat was awesome. And so there was, after a few years of doing it, I kind of felt like I got this. I'm fine. What do I know how to do this. I know what the contracts say. I got it. And anytime I would show up to any sort of a training or anything, or I would go home and talk to my wife about it, and she would be like, "You need to do that more. Every time you go in, you come back and tell me something you learned." Oh, okay. All right. All right. And so all the CE, all the continued education, I've always done in person because I felt like I've taken more away when I'm actually there in person doing it. And so now I try to show up for every one of these coffee and questions that you do that I can, because I feel like I take a lot away from just being in the room with you for one, and then all of the other agents, and we're sharing experiences, and that's helpful. And I feel like the smartest thing I can do as an agent who's been at this for 11 years now and has had pretty good success is not ever feel like I'm done learning or done growing. And I feel like that's easy to do once you start having success in this business is feel like, okay, well, I got it now. I'm fine. And really, we can all benefit from still getting together with other agents, still hearing people talk about their experiences and how they've dealt with something, maybe offering something from our experiences that could help them and things like that. So, for one, I don't know if Coffee and Questions was your idea, but I'm really, really glad that we have that. And I really want to encourage as many agents as possible to show up to do this.
Thank you for that.
I think it's super, super beneficial. And we usually have a pretty good, on the Zoom, there's usually a pretty good number of people, but in person, I just feel like it's a little bit different and a little bit more beneficial. So if you're listening, try to come to the Coffee and Questions. Mike does a great job. You put a lot into it. I want to revisit the Jeopardy one because I know you had more questions.
We didn't even make it through half. And I had said to our board of directors, I said, I want to do a weekly training, and I didn't come up with the name.
Okay.
Got to give credit to Cindy Grady for that. She came up with Coffee and Questions and Nuggets at Noon and what was it? Margarita Mondays. I mean, there was a lot of things that it's like, okay, well, what can we really do? Yeah. But it's been a great opportunity to get people together. We've got another different topic tomorrow. Express Docs is going to be here to talk about what they're doing for our company and what any agent can do in order to enhance their social media and mailings and things like that. So that a different topic tomorrow. But we will get back to the Grouperty game of questions. But and the more and more people that engage, and I want them in person, but if they're online, at least it's better than them not coming at all. We do record them. I still, after everyone in the afternoon, I'm emailing the links out every Wednesday, for those that have said, hey, I wasn't able to make it. But we do have a lot of the same folks that keep coming, and I appreciate that they do because I learn something new every day. I mean, who was it? It was Lou Holtz that said, if you're not growing, you're dying.
No, Lou Holtz, nice poll. Yeah.
And so, yes, you need to constantly read, go to meetings.
Here we go again with the reading. Yeah.
Well, and it's not just a benefit for you because what benefits you benefits your clients.
Yes. Yeah. That's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. Take the best care of our clients that we can. And that's our top priority. And like you mentioned earlier, then the money comes back around. If you take good care of your clients, it's just good for business because then they're going to come back to you and send people through you. So, and the best way to do that is to be as educated as possible. So, Mike, is there anything else you want to get in here? We're about an hour and 10 minutes, so we've filled this up pretty good. I feel like we could keep going. But,
I'm sure that we could.
Yeah, but I really wanted to touch on the training part before we got out of here, and I really wanted to encourage people to because that's the hard part is it's not mandated. You can't force agents to show up to do this.
That's the significant difference between an independent contractor and an employee.
Yes.
And so, and this has been tested by the IRS for decades. So no, we cannot mandate attendance. We would love to.
Yes.
Maybe we just start withholding commissions until they show up. Has an incentive, maybe. I don't know.
See, now Butcher's going to call you. He usually calls me about the commission talk. He'll call you this time. That wasn't me. But yeah, no, it's super important to just keep learning, and I have on here like training new agents, and we touched on that. And so I'm going to keep you a little bit longer because I have something else that I want to get to and let you go for a couple minutes. Training new agents and the trick with that, and getting them, and you said it's a big liability. The contrast of that between experienced agents that have been doing this for a decade or longer, who because it's an ever evolving business, and rules change and laws change. What challenge does that present with agents that have been doing this for decades, who learned it one way and maybe have a hard time adjusting?
So Mike and I refer to that as corrective training.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
it's a real thing, though.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you and we do. We're a large company, obviously, and so yes, we have agents that may have 10 years of experience, but it's 1 year at a time, and they just they learn to do something one way, and change is difficult for realtors. We've seen it.
Yes.
And it's trying to change the thinking, and that's the challenge too. I mean, you could sit there and say, "I'm sorry, but this is the law." Yeah, but that's not the way we've done it. Well, then we've not been doing it correctly, and I can tell you that this is when this began, and you've not been doing it correctly for all these years,
right,
potentially. So, but that's also why we keep saying to everybody, you know what? It's incumbent upon you. This is your business. I mean, we as independent contractors, we're on our own, but we're not alone.
Yeah.
And
it's such a weird industry.
It is. Yeah. And so we can tell you so much, we can only make you do so much, and damn it, you've got to be self-motivated in this business. And self-motivated doesn't mean just to earn $1. Self-motivated is for professional development. You need to read, at least be updated on what the hell is going on, pardon my French. But it just, so many agents, I mean, August 17th happened, and it was after that, and agents from other companies were like, what do you mean I need to do this or this?
Right.
Oh, yeah. And so, but that we've got agents in our own company that are still slow to make adjustments to the practice changes, that are resistant to the practice changes. We have many that want to hold on to the old ways, and I get that.
It's worked for them.
Yes. And there's and I use examples. I mean, there's old ways of doing it this way, and there's old ways of doing it another way, and there's several old ways of doing things, but they're willing to let go of some of the old ways, but not all the old ways. Well, we have to evolve.
Yeah.
And new agents, it's easier to train them with the new ways because they know nothing else. With agents that have been doing it a while, it's a bigger challenge because we have to change the way we think, not just the way we do business. And it's still evolving.
It is.
I mean, the final settlement approval by Judge Boo in Kansas City is November 26th. So
coming right up.
And there have been to date 14 objections for him to consider not approving the settlement agreement.
Oh my gosh.
And I've read a couple of them, including an attorney from the Boston area who has submitted an objection to the approval that also reviewed, and Mike and I, we printed this report, it was 35, 40 pages. She went through like 15 different states' buyer agency agreements and pointed out the flaws in every one of them. Mm-hmm. Illinois, she didn't review.
Hey.
But very well-respected law professor out in Boston. So we have there's no indication that the judge is not going to go ahead and approve.
Right.
the final approval.
Oh my gosh.
But we're still evolving, and we all still know. And I said this last week in Boston, and talking to our general counsel, because she was asking me how it was going in Illinois, and I said, I think it's going as well as it could. I said there still is no decision uniformly as to what is best practice.
Sure.
I still think we're a ways away. And I said, just kind of curious, were brokers involved in crafting these new practices? Or was it just the plaintiff and defendant's attorneys that decided this is what we're going to have them do, not realizing that this stuff that they've created just doesn't make sense?
Right.
It's a challenge. We're trying to make it work, but it's so, somebody's going down this path, somebody's going down this path, somebody's going down this path, and none of them are wrong. We just haven't decided what's the best way to go yet.
Right. Right.
And so we feel that we're still going to have that. It could be months before. We do know that there are companies changing their policies on how they're doing things with commissions, for example, and that's a business decision. Anybody, we could even do that.
Sure.
So yeah, everybody's just still reacting and trying to move forward. The good news with all that, our company is on track to have its best year ever. Even through all this stuff that we've had to deal with, which we've been talking about since March, our agents have been resilient.
It's a testament to the agents we have
It is.
here.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the leadership that we have here. So pat yourself on the back a little bit. Man, I'm trying to wrap my head around what does this look like if this judge doesn't approve it? Then what?
Not sure.
Yeah, right.
Well, what we do know in Illinois is the General Assembly did codify those rules into Illinois license law.
All right.
Now, what they codified was nothing to do with commissions. What they codified was buyer agency agreements. Fine.
And
none of us were opposed to that. As a matter of fact, they did have a small focus group, I was told, when they were negotiating the settlement prior to March. And the focus group of brokers, they said, would you be opposed to buyer agreements? And they said, no, we absolutely could work with that.
I like it.
It's the other stuff that have come along with it.
It's tough. It's harder conversations to have, and if I could change some of the verbiage, I would, because I think it's a little, I don't know, a little unclear, and it involves a little extra work on our part to say, hey, no, it's not. I know you're signing this, but it's not really necessarily this, and it's not, and it's, anyhow, nothing's going to be perfect ever, but it shouldn't be easy. I always tell everybody, if it was easy, we wouldn't have jobs.
True. Well, and keep in mind, what we never did, and we talked about this at Coffee and Questions, is it was rare. Somebody actually told me that they did tell buyers what they got paid, and I said it was. I find it hard to believe.
I was there for that one.
That an agent actually sat down with somebody who was making an offer on a $300,000 home and said to them, "Yeah, I'm going to end up making $9,000 for this." What?
Right.
That would have stopped anybody in their tracks, or whatever that number might be. The good thing that is coming from this, at least what we need to embrace, is we have always told the seller what they're paying. We've never told the buyer what we're getting paid.
Sure.
And so now we're providing that clarity and setting those expectations.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That should happen.
We should have been doing it all along. Yeah. We just never did. They found out at the closing. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's still a lawsuit in the Northern District of Illinois. And so all the settlement was based on the seller side. There are buyer side lawsuits. And so the buyer side lawsuit, it's called Batten, that's the last name of the person that filed. It's continuing to move forward because it's the buyer saying, we didn't know the buyer agent was getting that much money. That inflated the price. Oh. So everybody's got to wait and see what's going to happen with this settlement to see if we can finally, continue to move forward or not. But again, buyer agency agreements, not a bad idea.
Not at all.
Buyers knowing how we get paid and how much we're getting paid, not a bad idea. But it's just getting there is this challenge.
Mike, I feel like we could go for another hour and a half, but we got to wrap this up. I got to meet my wife for lunch here in a little bit.
Yeah, so. Don't want to miss that.
Yeah, I'm hungry. All right. Thank you so much for making time. I know you've got plenty going on. So I appreciate you sitting down and doing this with me, and maybe we'll get to do it again sometime.
Happy to.
All right.
Happy to.
Have a good one. Right now is where I'll add in the music. And how it's good. You would love it.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'll let you know if I don't.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you.